You know that feeling, that swirling mix of just endless possibility, but also kind of crushing pressure when you're navigating your 20s.
Oh, definitely. Like, suddenly everyone has an opinion, right?
Exactly. On what you should be doing, where you should be going, who you should be. It's meant to be this time of, like, figuring it all out and making huge strides.
Yeah. And honestly, it can just feel incredibly noisy, overwhelming even.
Absolutely. It's a decade with so much potential, but yeah, unique challenges too. That external noise you mentioned, plus all the internal questioning.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
And that's actually why we're doing a deep dive today. We got some source material shared by one of you, a listener.
Oh, cool. What is it?
It's a chapter called Things Your 20s Are Too Short For. And our goal here is basically to take this list, unpack it,
Yeah.
find the key insights, the real nuggets that can maybe help you cut through some of that noise and make the most of this really formative time.
Right. So our mission is to figure out why these specific things are listed. Why are they considered such drains on time and energy, particularly in your 20s?
Yeah, exactly. What makes them so detrimental during this period of like building foundations and figuring out who you are?
And how do they all connect? What's the bigger picture the source is painting about living intentionally during this decade?
And it jumps right in challenging some, well, pretty common ideas. For instance, it hints that maybe just wanting happiness isn't quite the whole story.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so where does the list actually start?
All right, point number one, kicking things off with something that feels incredibly relevant for anyone starting out. Don't let anyone convince you you're incapable just because you're young.
Yes, the
And the
classic.
source immediately throws in these really powerful examples.
It doesn't mess around, huh? It mentions people like Plato, starting his political thing before he was even 20 and facing ridicule for it.
Right. And then it jumps forward to, modern giants like Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, making huge impacts while still in their 20s.
Oh, okay.
So the source just asks you to imagine, like, what if they had listened to that course of what do you know? It really highlights that this isn't just ancient history. That question, that doubt based purely on age, it's still a thing.
Oh, totally. And that dynamic is so common, isn't it? There's this sort of societal default to equate youth with, I don't know, lack of judgment or experience.
Right.
And sometimes it's well-intentioned skepticism from older folks, sure. But the source uses these huge examples to basically say, look, history and the modern world show age isn't the only factor, not by a long shot.
It's a direct challenge, really, to you,
Yeah.
the listener, and anyone you meet to just dismiss that limiting belief.
Okay, so that's a strong start. What's next? Looks like a cluster of points about interactions.
Yeah, exactly. Let's shift gears a bit and look at this block of points that really focus on navigating relationships and protecting your energy. Point two talks about arguing with people whose only goal is to prove themselves right, not to understand.
Ah, those conversations.
Right. The source quotes it as people who don't listen to understand, but to respond, who don't speak to be heard, but to defend.
Oof. Yeah, and what's powerful there is how this source frames it. It's not just annoying, it's a massive waste of your energy.
Right.
It basically says you don't owe them endless engagement in that loop, but you owe it to yourself to recognize it and, well, step away, protect your own peace.
Which flows perfectly into point three, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Wasting energy trying to placate people who deep down aren't willing to help themselves.
Yeah, the source paints that picture so well. Someone's stuck, but they shoot down advice, logic, any different view.
And you end up doing this exhausting dance,
Right.
pretending, nodding along, just trying to avoid a fight.
And the source is pretty blunt about it, that pretending it doesn't last, resentment builds up, and the relationship probably falls apart anyway. So it's drawing this critical line between genuinely supporting someone who's trying versus enabling someone who isn't. And your energy. Too valuable for the second one.
Okay, moving on. Point four hits something very specific. Justifying your choices to people who are mostly just worried about how you look in the context of their lives.
Oh, that's a subtle one, but so true.
The source points out that often the loudest critics, the ones demanding explanations, they're actually worried about how your choices reflect on them or how they'll explain you to their friends or whatever.
Right, because your 20s are often when you start making choices that maybe diverge from what's expected, career changes, relationship shifts, moving.
Yeah.
And the source is basically saying, hey, look at why they're asking for justification and decide whose opinion actually matters when you're building your life, not theirs.
And that links straight into point five. staying in contact with people you genuinely don't like just because you feel obligated.
Ugh, the obligation trap. That vague should, or it's just convenient, or guilt, or you're afraid of what they'll say if you're honest.
Yeah.
And the source's message here just feels so freeing. It basically says you don't have to spend your limited time and energy bending over backwards for people who wouldn't do the same for you.
There's freedom and honesty, it suggests.
Exactly. Freedom and integrity in being real about who you keep close.
Okay, let's transition now. The source also talks specifically about romantic relationships. Point 6 is about holding on to love that's clearly over because of fear.
Right. The fear that maybe that was it, the best you'll ever have, or you won't find anyone else who feels the same way.
Yeah, those fears.
Yeah.
And the source has this really almost philosophical take. It suggests sometimes a great love is there to teach you something profound.
Maybe even break you open a bit.
Yeah. And then crucially, its job is done. It sends you on your way, having learned whatever you needed to learn.
So it frames those fears, not finding someone else, the best is passed as irrational. And it really pushes you not to let them trap you.
Preventing you from finding bigger, better, even happier things, as it puts it.
And that connects straight to point 15, right? Staying in a relationship where you secretly know you're settling, just because nobody better is around right now or you're scared of being alone.
Exactly.
And the source highlights the long-term danger there. It warns that if you get comfortable settling in temporary stuff jobs, relationships you know aren't right.
That mindset can creep in elsewhere.
Yeah, it can spill over into more permanent things like marriage. It really underlines how crucial it is to be honest with yourself early on about what you really need and value. Don't settle.
Okay, let's move to point 7. This one's kind of a list. Seems simple, but the source argues it adds up to a lot of wasted life.
The little things list. Let's hear it.
Okay. Eating food you don't actually like, keeping plans you really don't want to keep, staying digitally connected to people who just annoy you.
Mm-hmm. Familiar territory.
Hoarding clothes for some mythical someday, waiting around for someone who's clearly not committing.
Right. So what's the core message the source pulls from all that?
It's about the sheer cumulative effect.
Yeah.
All these things you hold on to, actions, connections, even stuff that don't genuinely serve you.
They just drain you bit by bit.
Exactly. And the source concludes that every moment spent on those is a moment not spent on the things that matter, that bring us joy and purpose and meaning.
So it's a huge push for being fiercely intentional, even with the small, everyday choices.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's dive into some points that are really about the inner journey, the work you do on yourself.
Okay, the internal stuff.
Point 8 is not taking the time to figure out what you actually want. And the source adds this really key nuance.
Which is?
Even if what you figure out is simply that you're okay with not being totally sure right now.
That's important. Takes the pressure off finding the one answer.
Right. And the source warns against that paralysis, that fear of not finding something definitive. It suggests if you don't put in some effort to reflect, to connect with your own core inner knowing,
You just end up
running around in the circle somebody else drew for you. It's basically saying self-awareness is the foundation for living intentionally.
Makes sense. Which leads nicely into point 9, I bet.
It does. Point 9, not taking the time to heal childhood wounds.
Oof. Heavy, but critical.
Yeah. The source presents these wounds as like constructs, patterns, beliefs built from early stuff, and crucially, only you can dismantle them.
Right. It's your work to do.
And it lays out this stark choice. You can do the hard work now in your 20s when you're maybe more adaptable, or it warns, those unhealed walls will eventually get confronted anyway, maybe forcibly knocked down by powers greater than your own self-control. Like, life will force the issue later if you don't deal with it now.
Wow. That's intense. But it also emphasizes your agency, right?
Totally. It ends with, the choice is yours, it always will be.
Okay. So connecting these inner points, point 19 seems relevant.
Yes. Point 19 nails it. Waiting for something outside you to fix what's going on inside you.
The external fix fallacy.
Exactly. The source lists the usual suspects we look to. Waiting for next year, the new job, the perfect relationship, the bigger paycheck, the right outfit, the new apartment.
All the external stuff we think will magically change how we feel inside.
And the source just states it, flat out. Always. Internal dissatisfaction will always follow you until you deal with it on its own terms.
Meaning through internal work, not by rearranging the furniture outside.
Precisely. You can change everything externally, but that internal state, it needs its own attention.
Okay, that's powerful. Let's maybe get a bit more practical now. Finances, career.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Point 11 is never taking the initiative to truly learn to live within your means.
Okay, money management, important.
But the source makes a key distinction here. It says it's not really about how much money you make, save, or owe.
It's more fundamental than that.
Yeah. The core issue, according to the source, is the underlying mindset and lifestyle around spending. Are you living within your means or consistently beyond them?
Right, because without tackling that internal approach, that mindset.
The same financial problems will follow you no matter where you go or what you achieve. Doesn't matter if your income doubles, the pattern persists.
Got it. Mindset over numbers, initially at least.
Yeah.
What about point 12?
Point 12, putting off things you want most until it's somehow more convenient.
Oh, the someday trap again.
Yeah, but the source offers this really simple, powerful contrast. It says if you're looking for a reason not to do something,
You'll always find one. Guaranteed.
always. But if you actively look for a way how to make it happen,
You'll find a way how. It reframes convenience, doesn't it? From something external that just happens to an internal choice you make. Proactive versus passive.
exactly. And that idea of taking initiative, it links right into point 14, staying stuck in a miserable job.
Okay. But the source is realistic here, right? It's not saying quit tomorrow with no plan.
No, not at all.
Right?
It acknowledges you might not land your dream job instantly, but it highlights what people who do achieve things young have in common. They are consistently putting themselves out there.
So it's about the consistent effort. Actively looking, applying, networking, learning.
Yeah.
Even when it's tough or nothing seems to be happening immediately.
Yes. The source connects that consistent effort to basically creating your own opportunities, making your own luck, and having faith that the process, the effort itself, will eventually pay off.
Right. You got to be in the game. Okay, shifting perspective again. How we see others. Point 10.
Yeah, point 10. Judging people for things that seem wrong or, not ideal from our viewpoint.
Okay, this sounds like one of the trickier ones.
It is. It requires a real shift. The source puts forward this idea that every single thing serves a purpose. Meaning life and the choices people make aren't necessarily about looking perfect or following our ideal path. It's about them going through the specific experiences they need for their growth.
So the examples it gives, like a marriage that looks doomed from the outside, or young parents who seem unprepared, or people who seem to be drifting.
Right. The source suggests maybe we shouldn't judge those situations as just wrong. It offers this really challenging idea that maybe all things are good because all things serve us in the way of growth and development.
Wow. That's a lot to chew on. It's basically a call to be way less judgmental and maybe more accepting of different paths.
I think so. Towards a more non-judgmental view, yeah. And kind of related, point 17 is about how we see ourselves and interact. It's never learning to say sorry or thank you in a way that's truly genuine.
Basic manners, but deeper.
Exactly. The source says it's not just about saying the words, it's about developing real humility.
Being able to actually recognize when you messed up or truly appreciate what others do.
Yeah, and feeling sincere gratitude. The source lists who you should express this to: parents, exes, teachers, strangers, friends, family.
A wide net.
And it ends with a really impactful one. Most importantly, to yourself.
So self-compassion, self-forgiveness, self-appreciation are tied into this too.
Seems like it. That genuine growth requires being able to sincerely apologize to and appreciate yourself as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, is there anything lighter on this list? It feels pretty heavy so far.
Yes, actually. Point 18 brings in a touch of lightness, but maybe it's just as significant. It's not ordering pizza at 4 a.m.
Okay, I can get behind that one. What else?
Or, eating cake for breakfast sometimes. Impulsively kissing a stranger, maybe use judgment there.
Yeah.
Giving somebody your number when you feel a spark.
Taking that spontaneous road trip, sleeping in the car with a friend.
Exactly. The source groups these as slightly irresponsible but ultimately harmless things. The stuff you're often tempted to do but most times don't have the guts to.
And the source's advice on these temptations.
Simple, direct, in parentheses. Do it.
Nice. I like that. It feels like a needed counterbalance, right, to all the serious inner work and boundary setting.
Totally. A reminder that amidst all the figuring things out, there's huge value in just simple joys, spontaneity, letting yourself be gloriously, harmlessly imperfect sometimes.
Love it. Okay, what's the final point? Point 20.
The final point, point 20, only wanting happiness.
Wow. Okay, that ties back to what you mentioned at the start. So the argument is, what? Happiness isn't the ultimate goal.
Not the only goal, anyway.
Right.
The source argues that if you only chase constant contentment, you miss out on so much more in a life than just feeling content all the time.
So what's the so much more?
It suggests the moments that truly define you, the things that shape who you become, often have little to do with just being happy. They're about the full, often messy spectrum.
Stop.
Suffering and heartbreak and joy and panic and fear and love, and what you come out as having been through those things.
Okay, that's profound. So the struggle, the tough stuff, is actually part of what makes life meaningful.
That seems to be the argument. The source's closing lines are pretty stark. It says you won't vividly remember the just okay days or the merely happy ones.
What will you remember?
The defining moments, the challenging ones, the changing ones, the miraculous, the difficult, but the incredible moments that made you feel truly alive.
So it's basically an argument against numbing yourself, against avoiding discomfort just to stay in that fine zone.
Exactly. It's a compelling push to resist that urge.
In the final challenge the source leaves you with, it connects back to fear, right?
It says, stop numbing your life out of fear. The real beast you need to confront isn't usually external circumstances.
It's internal.
It's the part of yourself who deep down doesn't want to really live. Which circles back to so much of the list, doesn't it?
It really does. The fear of judgment, fear of being alone, fear of uncertainty, fear of hard emotions. It all seems connected.
Yeah. It's all about shedding those fears to embrace the full, rich, sometimes difficult, but ultimately way more rewarding experience of actually living.
Wow, okay. So we've really unpacked this list, a deep dive into this chapter, things your 20s are too short for.
Yeah, we've covered a lot, from challenging those external limits and setting crucial boundaries in relationships.
To the importance of letting go of stuff that doesn't serve you, making intentional daily choices, committing to that vital inner work, self-discovery, healing.
And we have the practical stuff too. Finances, career, but framed as mindset and proactive effort.
Plus, shifting perspective on judging others, embracing genuine humility, finding value in spontaneity.
And ending with that powerful call to seek the full spectrum of experience, not just plain old happiness.
So this dive into this particular source, it really offers a solid framework, doesn't it, for you, the listener, to think about navigating this really dynamic time.
Yeah, it gives concrete insights, challenges, common assumptions about what your 20s should look like. It's about helping you cut through that noise we talked about.
Zeroing in on what truly holds value and meaning for you.
Exactly. And if we pull back and connect this to the bigger picture, the source paints. Especially that last point about seeking more than just happiness and not waiting for external fixes.
It leaves us with a pretty potent question to ponder, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
If the source is right, that real growth and feeling alive come from embracing the whole range of experience, the good and the bad.
And that waiting for external stuff to fix your internal state always fails.
Then the challenge is, what's one small internal step you could take, maybe even today? Could be acknowledging a fear or a wound you've been avoiding, or even a hidden desire. Something internal instead of just waiting for something outside you to change how you feel inside.